Hi, Natalie.
Hello, darling. You okay?
I'm great. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Been a while.
What I was gonna ask you, us to focus on, is really how can people grow their income, and then look at different people. So let's say you have a few hundred that you want to start off with, a few thousand, and then thousands, 10,000s, 100,000. But how does everybody start to grow their income and start to think of money in a way that it frees us versus actually we're just constantly worrying about not having enough and am I going to have enough to retire on, and this scarcity mindset that we have around money.
Yeah, definitely. And it is one of those things that, there are people who, as you said, if you're one of those people just starting off with a couple £100 and you're looking at someone with a couple £100,000, might think, well, once I get there, then I won't have that feeling anymore. I won't have that scared of running out mindset. But even those people have that same mindset too. So it's hard one to break, but this constant feeling of it's not enough is
Yeah.
very common all of the time. But as you say, what a lot of people do is they just talk themselves out of starting because they feel like they don't qualify to have enough to invest or have enough to start growing my money. So again, it's just breaking that mindset of thinking, oh, one day when I get here, then I'll feel better, because you're almost constantly chasing your tail. But as you sort of said, high interest rate savings accounts are a really nice, easy, safe way to almost start dipping your toe in the water of investing, of savings, of getting your money working a bit harder for you, where you can actually see some benefit. Because say 5, 6 years ago, when interest rates were down on the ground, it was great if you're trying to get a mortgage and it was very cheap to borrow money. But if you're trying to save and save up a deposit for a house or save for the kids, save for a holiday, whatever it is, it could feel like you're not really getting anywhere, because you'd put maybe £100 away every month for the holiday. And if you were lucky, you might get 10p back in interest. Or at the end of the year, you might get £1 or £10. And it was just so little incentive or such little benefit that people couldn't buy into it. They couldn't see, well, what's the long-term potential for me here? Whereas now we're in a different world. Higher interest rates aren't good for people with mortgages or borrowing money because it costs a lot more money. But this new thing's coming, the new kid on the block is these high interest rate savings accounts, where you don't have to take what people see as risk of actually investing your money and putting them into the markets where it can go up and down. People like having that safety buffer of my money's in cash. So if I put £100 in 1 month, 1 year, 10 years down the line, it's still £100. It's never going to go down. But then what you run the risk of, it won't go up. So now we've got these, like you said, these high interest rate savings accounts, which some of them I was even looking this morning. So they do change every day. So if I'm telling you something today, it might not be on offer in a week or 2 weeks or even a month's time. But you can get 5% on cash, which is almost unheard of. You wouldn't have seen anything like that. Maybe in the last year or so you have, but before that, you wouldn't have seen 5% interest on cash accounts since before the millennium, before the financial crisis. So long, long time ago was this kind of offer anywhere for me, you, or anyone else to go and get.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it works, is if you've got £100 left over at the end of the month and you want to put it into a savings account, you put it into a high interest rate savings account. And each account's different. Some will pay you the interest monthly, some will pay you annually, but you will get exactly what that percentage is. So if it's 5% and you put in £100, you will get a fiver back at the end of the month for saving that money, which is a lot more than what you used to get many years ago.
Right. So first of all, what do you find is the mindset that somebody who saves money has versus somebody who just is a consumer?
Yeah. So the biggest tell I can sort of figure out if someone has a decent amount of savings accounts or savings, any or none, is I'll normally ask them how they spend their money. So you I'm not saying everyone's one of two camps, but the majority of people fall into one of these two camps. Most people will earn their income, their wage, whatever it is, gets paid to them. They'll pay their rent, their mortgage, their bills. They'll go out for the coffees, travel, do everything they need to do. And if there's anything left over at the end, they might save it.
Right, yes.
99% of the time, there's nothing left over at the end, because there's always something will come up.
Mm-hmm.
The people who, if I speak to them, and how do you spend your money? Where does it go every month? And someone goes, right, pay £500 a month in rent. I wish rent was £500, but £500 a month in rent, £150 a month goes into my savings, £200 goes to my travel. That's the person with the discipline, and they almost view savings as one of their outgoings, as an essential bill that needs to be paid, rather than view it as a luxury that if there's anything left over at the end, then we'll put it away. Because like I said, there just never normally is. So you must need to build into what you want to save. Never leave yourself short, obviously. That's why I always say to people, having a good understanding of what your requirements are and outgoings, bills, financial responsibilities is really essential to know, because then you can come up with a realistic figure of, if I've only got £150 left at the end of the month, well, let's put 50 into savings, and 100 then can be my buffer. We now know that that's what's affordable, but in the next month we flip it to the 50 goes in straight away, right at the start. Yeah.
What would you say to women who are maybe having to start over in life, maybe start a new career, and are thinking, okay, I've kind of missed my window to accrue savings and generate enough money to have a passive income?
Yeah, so firstly, it's never too late. And secondly, that happens all the time. Nearly all of the women who come across my desk or sit in front of me at a table, they say, I'm 40 now, I know I should be doing this, or I should have looked at my pensions, or I should have more in savings. But life happens, there's no judgment here. And it's better starting at 40 than sticking your head in the sand till 55. Or 60. So it's always like, it can be painful to sort of almost rip that band-aid off and expose yourself as being vulnerable, and I'm just starting now at 40 odd or whatever age it is. But I always say it's better to, like I said, to start now than later down the line. And exactly like you were saying at the start of this conversation, society has this view on women that, when we hit 30 or 40, it's like, what are you going to do now? Your career's coming to an end. We're only just getting started, darling. So it's the same with your finances. If you're going to carry on working, you can change your career at 40. You can start investing at 40. It's never too late. And again, don't talk yourself out of it, because the only analogy I can use is you're just sticking your head in the sand for a bit longer, or you're kicking that can down the road, because at some point you're going to want to stop working. Yes. You might have realised, okay, I've missed the mark to retire at 40 because I'm only 40 now looking to save. But you're going to want to stop working at one point. You're going to want to have, there's going to be grandkids you want to spend time with, or there's going to be stuff. So it's just better to look at this now and take this as your starting point. And then you can always make up for a bit of lost time. You can't sort of wave magic wand and backdate yourself 20 years and start saving as 20-year-old Natalie rather than 40-year-old Natalie. But it's better to start somewhere than not at all. And again, even in those points, again, a lot of the time, if it is, a woman's recently divorced or changing her career or just had children and is now looking to the future, I very much understand that is sometimes where you've got your highest level of responsibilities, the highest amount of outgoings, probably the smallest amount of spare disposable income coming in, because you've got all of these other bits going on. But there is ways that you can take like for example, your old pots. Lots of people say I have nothing, Natalie, I have nothing to my name. I said, well, have you had a job? Yeah, I've had a job. Well, then you've got a pension from that job. Oh yeah. Oh, well, then there's a pot of money that's something to start on. And we can just, and even if it's, you take your £10 a month and top up an old pension, it's something that will help you start gaining traction into where you want to get to.
That's really important. So what about people who, let's say you've just retired? I think the retirement age changed. I've been trying to follow the headlines about the women who past the window and then they're in their late 60s, so they had to work to that. So let's say you've just retired and you are drawing on a pension. Is there a way to make that money stretch?
Yeah, definitely. So firstly, if you're drawing on, like, say, the state pension starts paying you, or some of your old work pensions start paying you an income, that what you can then do is, what you can't do is you can't put it back into another pension scheme, because it's almost counts as recycling your money. So you're not allowed to do that. but there's nothing stopping you, say, taking some of your income. For example, if we take the state pension, that pays you about £203 a week if you've got your full national insurance record. So say you're getting a £203 a week, that's, you know, about £800 to £1,000 a month, depending on what month we're in. You know, if you've got a spare £100 from that every month, there's nothing stopping you putting that into a high interest savings account, or ISA, where you're saying, you know, I've got this spare £100 a month, I want it to do something where it's going to work a bit harder for me, get me a bit more money, but you're not doing anything crazy with it, you know, like chucking it into Bitcoin or something like that where you could lose it all tomorrow. It's nothing too exciting. There's no doubling your money overnight. There's nothing like that that's actually worthwhile or a safe investment. But there are definitely ways that you can get a little bit, 5% of interest, chuck a bit into, like I said, a savings account or an ISA where it is invested. It will go up and down like this. But any growth you get, you're not paying any tax on. And, you know, you're building up a nice little nest egg for you there for a few years down the line, where you can have a bit of a buffer pot that you can jump in and out of for holidays or anything else.
So if you're putting it into certain ISAs, which ISA would you recommend? The one that pays you out yearly or the one that pays you out monthly?
Okay, so yeah, this one's a really good question, because what you get is you get cash ISAs, and they sit in cash, just like a high interest savings account, and you will get a certain amount of interest on top of it. What you've got to think about is some people want that income. So some people say, oh, actually, Natalie, I want that £50 a month that it will pay me in interest. That's my Wi-Fi paid for, whatever it is paid for the month. Some people say, well, you know what, really, I don't need that £50 a month right now. I would rather it stay. You still get the £50, but they just top up your account with it. So it goes back into the pot. And then that will grow again. So then if you put your £50 a month in interest that you would be getting straight back into the pot, well, then you're quickly growing that pot, and then you're going to get an extra 5% interest on that £50 of interest you've got. So it starts compounding up really nicely, and there's nothing to stop you doing that for a couple of years, and then you can swap it to an income paying one, where then it starts paying you income. One thing I would say to people is you got to keep in mind is everyone wants as much interest as they can get, because that's the benefit of your cash. That's where you're getting a bang for your buck, something that you didn't have before. What not many people are aware of is, though, is that you actually only get £1,000 each tax year of interest tax-free. If you start getting over £1,000 in interest every year, HMRC want you to start paying tax on that money.
Sorry, how much? 1,000?
Over £1,000
a year.
So yeah, a year in interest.
I thought it had to be 12,000.
Well, again, it all depends on your income. So if you have no income at all, and all you have is, say, 50 grand in a savings account that a long lost auntie you inherited when she died, or something like that, that's all you've got to your name. You don't work, you don't earn anything. Then you get what's called your personal allowance. You can earn up to £12,000 tax-free. For most people, though, who have a job, me, you, will all be earning over that £12,570. So then what happens is you're using your tax-free allowance, the £12,570 already on your income. Now, when you start receiving interest on your savings account, they see that as income too. So the government say, well, let you get £1,000 a year. So if it's something that's just paying you £10 a month in interest, you don't have to worry about it, because you're only getting £120 a year. If you start building this up, though, and you start putting in all your money into these pots and all paying you 5% interest, and say now it's giving you £100 a month in interest, well, then you've earned £1,200 in interest in a tax year. You will then, you can get 1,000 of it tax-free, but that £200, they want you to pay tax on that.
And how much do you pay?
Whatever your income tax rate is, so 20%.
Okay.
What happens then, though, is it gets even more complicated. If you earn over 50,000 and now you're in the 40% rate tax bracket, they don't want to give you £1,000. They only give you £500.
Doesn't it feel sometimes it feels like, and this is what I get from people all the time, it almost feels like you can never out earn how much we're being taxed.
Yeah, I get that. And honestly, the UK is one of the most complicated tax systems that I always say, if they could tax you for breathing, they would. They just haven't found out a way to calculate it yet. So I do get that, and it's almost like whatever way you turn, the tax man has this sort of door or this hurdle that you've got to try and get over before you can see any of the benefit. And that's why I always go back to ISAs, because ISAs are the only savings, investment vehicle, whatever you want to consider them, in the UK that have zero tax. So you'll never pay capital gains tax on that money that you've got in an ISA, and you'll never pay income tax on that money that you've got in an ISA.
For how much? So, for example,
forever. But what happens is you only get £20,000 of allowance a year.
20,000 a year. So once you reach 20,000, what do you then do? Because if you take that out, does that mean you now have to pay 20% of from the 20,000?
No. So just say, you come to me and you want to start saving £500 a month. We put your £500 a month into an ISA. Over the years, that's £6,000 in a year. You do that and you haven't used up your full allowance. Then say next year, like we use the same example, long lost auntie passes away and you inherit £40,000. Well, you can't put the whole £40,000 into the ISA because you only get £20,000 of allowance. So you can take £20,000 of the allowance this year, half of it, put it in the ISA, let it do its thing. And then we'll wait till next tax year, next April, and I'll say, right, now we've got another £20,000 of allowance because we're in a new tax year. Let's put the other remaining 20 grand that you didn't use before into the ISA too. So now from those 3 years, you've got your 40 grand in there, plus the 6,000 of the £500 you were doing at the start. So you've got £46,000 in a pot. That will get invested, or you can leave it in cash if you want, where it's getting its 2-3% in interest going back into the pot. Or you can invest it, so it will go up and down like this, but you'll get much more in the long run than 2-3%. And what I always say to people, if you don't need the income, put it back in the pot, put it back in the pot. And what you'll do is you'll slowly over time, say in 5 years, turn that 46,000, say to 75,000.
Right.
As long as the money keeps going into the pot, no tax to pay. And then even then, you might turn around and say, you know what, I need to take 20 grand out because I want to go on a trip of a lifetime with a child. I want to pay off a chunk of the mortgage or whatever it is, or I want to prepay my rent a year in advance. Whatever it is, you can take that money out. You can take out a whole 20 grand, not pay any capital gains tax. So that is normally a tax you pay when you grow any of your assets or your money. So when you buy or sell a house, you have to pay capital gains tax, or when you buy some Tesla stock and then sell it, they want capital gains tax. In the ISA, you never pay that. And again, when you wanted to, if just say you wanted to take out rather than 20 grand in a lump sum, you actually said, Natalie, I've retired now. I would like £1,000 a month from my 75 grand pot or whatever it is for the next 75 months. You get that £1,000 with zero income tax to pay as well.
But so what you said about if you inherited 40,000, you take that 40,000, only put 20,000. What do you do with the other 20,000 so that you don't pay tax on it? Or do you?
Well, you don't pay tax on it, but you can either leave it in just a regular savings account. You might put it in a high interest savings account. But then what you've got to do is you've got to look in, say you're a regular person earning 25 grand a year, and that's exactly happened. I've inherited 40,000. I'll put in 20 into the ISA. The other 20 I'll put into a high interest savings account. So it's getting me 4 or 5% while I'm waiting.
Okay.
What I have to do then is just check that the 4 or 5% of interest I'm going to get on my 20,000 won't be more than the £1,000 allowance I have, which it won't be. You'll get, say, like 600 quid. It depends on exactly what the allowance or what the interest rate is. But yeah, say it's 5%.
So if it was 20,000 and you were getting 5%, so how much would that yield?
That would yield you exactly £1,000.
Okay. So for 20,000, if you leave it in for a year, you only get £1,000 on 5%. Okay, and that means that you don't get taxed on it.
And that is your limit. If someone came to me and said, "Well, Natalie, I've got 25,000 and I want to put it in a high interest savings account," well, then I'd say to them, you can either put the whole 25,000 in, get your interest, which would then be a bit more, it might be 1,200, and you've got to pay 20% tax on £200. which is 40 quid. Or you could just put the 20 grand in and leave £5,000 in your current account, as long as you've got the discipline to do it and not touch it or spend it or whatever that is.
And is that a year? So you can just literally leave it every year and withdraw 1,000 a year?
Yeah.
What can we do? Is there a way to generate? I was just reading one of these headlines. This guy who took a few thousand and then was able to generate income about 1,000 a month.
And how quickly was he able to generate that income of 1,000 a month on a few thousand?
I did not read the whole article.
Probably a while, only because, to be realistic with you to start, just say you'll put 3,000 in, you put a few thousand, even 5,000 in, for that to be at a point. And then also I'd be intrigued to know how long was he taking £1,000 a month income, because he might have put 5,000 in and it's given him £1,000 a month for 5 months and then his money's gone. Well, that's just spending your own money. If he's managed to get that to pay him £1,000 a month for the next 15, 20 years, it would have been either some amazing kind of Bitcoin investing where you're seeing 200, 300, 400%, and he's cashed out at the right time, which 99.9% of home people who try and do this themselves can't replicate. Or he's taken a long time to build that up. So again, I do see it happen where parents, they might put £1,000 a year into a pension for their child, 100 quid a month, 80 quid a month, whatever it is. And they do that for a couple of years. So they do pay in, say, only 6 grand, 9 grand over a few years of their life. And then the kid doesn't touch it until 50. And then at 50, they've got £500,000 in a pension pot. Yes. But
how would you do that, though? How, for example, can you, over 50 years, turn a few thousand into £500,000, as you say? Is it compounding?
It's compounding partly. That's the best way to sort of even out the volatility of the market. So what that means is I might have someone come to me on that exact scenario and they say, got £1,200 to put into my kid's pension or into investment for my kids, so they'll be really rich when they're old. Do I give it to you now? And I said, no, don't give the whole thing to me now, because right now, as markets do every day, they go like this, hopefully in this direction, sometimes downwards, but they go like this every day. If you give me £1,200 to invest today, we're just picking one price point today, whatever that is. It could be up here, we could be buying really, really high, or we could be buying really, really low. Ideally, we want to buy as low as possible because that's when we see as much growth. What do I do to sort of minimise the risk of putting in at the top or the bottom? Well, let's spread that £1,200 over 12 months. So instead of giving me it all now, give me £100 a month. And what will happen is I'll put 100 quid in here. The next month it might be down here. Next month it might be up there, then down, then up, then down. And what happens is over the 12 months, you end up getting more of like an average, which then you're not taking the risk of it's a flip of a coin. Are we putting it in on a good day or a bad day? 50-50 chance, who knows, because no one knows what's coming tomorrow. Let's spread that risk by actually doing it over the course of the year. And then what you do is you expand that out to a few years and then say stop. Say you do £100 a month into a child's pension account or a junior ISA or whatever it is you want to do for a few years of their life, and then put it in, I would say, a high equity portfolio. They're risky because they are fully invested in companies. Equities are companies, stocks and shares, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons, the Teslas, all the way down to the little companies no one's heard of. That is where we see most growth, but we also see most falling as well. That's where we see the biggest volatility. Because I don't know if I've used this example with you before, but Tesla, great company. All it takes though is one tweet from Elon Musk and that share price has gone from 100p a share to 1p a share. It's very volatile because there's lots of outside things that can affect the pricing of it. So, but that is where we see the most growth. If you invested in Amazon 5, 10, 15 years ago, 100 quid, and you're holding that still now, you'd be laughing. Because that's where you do see the most growth potential. So that is the kind of place where you can do that. You can put in a few £100 a month or a couple grand a year for a couple of years to a savings account or pension, put it in a high equity based portfolio and don't touch it for 30, 40 years. that's when you will see those kind of pots of 500,000, 750,000 for someone who's just put in a few thousand 40, 50 years ago. And then that will then fund their lifestyle for the next 20, 30 years of their life.
Wow. So let's say someone comes to you now, they have £1,000 and they're thinking, you know what, I don't have the temperament, the mindset to do this. I trust Natalie. She seems like she knows what she's talking about. And they say to you, okay, Natalie, I think I want to call you. I want to email you and give me some advice. What's the first thing you would advise them? £1,000.
Yeah, £1,000. It's very difficult to do this. It's because it sounds simple. One of the first questions I'd ask them back though is, what do you want the money for? Is it a wedding in 5 years' time? Is it actually, I don't plan on ever needing that money until I'm 60 and sailing off to the Cayman Islands or the Caribbean Islands for the rest of my days? What's the kind of, I would say, what's the time horizon we've got to play with here? Is it that you've got £1,000 for your 6-year-old child and she wants to spend it at 18 to go buy her first car or deposit for a house? Okay, we've got 12 years. If it's, say, someone who's 20 and they don't need it till they're 60, okay, we've got 40 years. My two first point of call options would be an ISA or a pension.
For both?
Yeah, for both, only because pensions come with a bit of extra tax relief. So if I've got someone who's earning some money, they're paying money to the tax man, they might want to get a bit of tax back from the money they paid to the tax man. You can do a bit more with the pension in terms of getting your income tax back. But the big caveat that not many people are aware is when you come to retire and spend your pension's viewed as income. So you will pay that tax and income tax back later down the line. Yes. Or you might want somebody who says, you know, I want to get it growing. I want to, whatever, double, triple it in the next 30 years, whatever that is. But I never want to pay. I never want to have to worry about giving the tax back or a tax bill landing on my desk for me to spend this money. The ISA is the route to go then, because there's never any tax to pay. You can grow.
All ISAs are, treated the same.
Every single one, yeah. In the UK, you can't really get ISAs outside of the UK, but whether it's a cash ISA or whether it's a stocks and shares ISA, they are always completely income tax free and completely capital gains tax free.
And what's the difference between an income ISA and a stocks and shares ISA?
Yeah, so cash ISAs are the income ISAs you're thinking about. Stocks and shares ones can also pay you income, but I always say to people, the whole kind of benefit of an ISA is that tax-free growth. And again, apologies if I've used this example with you before, but say I run with the same examples I have been. You've got £1,000 and you go buy straight Tesla stock or Amazon stock. And what you hope is that in 10 years' time, that £1,000 is turned to £100,000. If you buy pure stock, Amazon stock, what will happen is the tax man, when you come to spend your £100,000, will say, you've had a gain on your assets, so come pay me some tax, please.
And again, 40%, is it?
The capital gains tax is either 10 or 20%, depending again on your earnings. So you could be losing 20% of your £100,000, 20 grand to the tax man because you've done a good job and grown your money. Not fair, but that's the way the world works. Same with the cash ISAs. Again, if you put your £1,000 in a cash ISA and somehow we grew it and it got all of this interest of 100,000 and it starts paying you £1,000 a month in interest, you've got to pay tax. So that's why I always say to people, if you don't need the income right now, this is how people are able to build those pots that start giving them an income, is because they wait off to start with. So for the first 5-10 years of investment, you shouldn't really be taking an income because you're in the growth stage. You want to let it accumulate up. That's how that guy turned his few thousand into a few 100,000, because he let it do its thing without taking an income first. And then once you stop work, once you say take some time off to have some kids or whatever it is, that's when you then turn the income tap on and say, right, now this ISA that I've been saving into for the last 10, 12 years, my £150 a month, whatever it is I'm putting into it, all till now, get the interest, the growth, the dividends, whatever it is that your one's paying you, get them reinvested back in, because that's where you will see the compounding really sort of start to have that snowball effect. And then what that allows you to then do is when you need to turn the tap on to get an income, you know, now I've got 75 grand in an ISA that I can turn on my £1,000 a month, tax-free, capital gains tax-free, income tax-free, and that can pay me my £1,000 a month for the 9 months I'm off on maternity leave, or once I retire, maybe I haven't put enough into the pension, or my £203 a week from the state isn't quite enough to cut it. I know I can take £500 a month tax-free from this pot.
Yeah. And let's delve into a little bit about compounding.
Yes.
So you said if you're doing the monthly investing, so let's say every month I have 10% of my income going straight into a monthly ISA. That's better than a yearly one.
Yeah, again, it is better because you can, lots of people, again, I'm just going off sort of the norm here of what I come across. People want to see that benefit as early as possible. It's like, you go to the gym, if I don't have a six-pack within 6 days, I'm cancelling membership because I can't see a benefit.
Yes.
It's the same with that. It's, you know, if you're putting your 100 quid away or whatever it is, 10% of your thingy away, lots of people after 6 months have been like, that's done nothing for me. So why am I doing that? It makes no difference if you're getting 5% a month.
It'd be the same amount then.
Pretty much, yeah. Again, it would be very minimal. Unless you're talking huge amounts that you're investing, it will be pennies.
Yes.
But again, just to see that 5% come in straight away, you'll start sort of getting more emotively tied to it, and you're oh, there's that £5 and that's that coffee I had free basically, or that's my travel for the day paid for. Then you sort of start, what if I put in a little extra 20 quid? And you just sort of start talking yourself into doing more, so because you can see that benefit earlier on.
What about shares? You said the problem with shares is that you will be taxed on any gains.
Yeah. So how it works is, I'm not telling people to not invest in shares, because shares is where you will make most of your money. So when I'm talking about putting your ISA or your pension into a high equity based portfolio, that is shares. You are still investing in shares, but you're just doing it in a more tax efficient wrapper. So so with the shares I'm talking about with the tax man, that's, you know, where you get, I even have one, I've got an investing account, or my clients, they might have a trading 212 account, where they just, you know, they might hear a bit of news on Reddit or somewhere and, oh, I'm going to chuck 50 quid into this. All of that stuff, that is where you will get what's called capital gains tax. And again, I'll run with the same example. You put £1,000 in, 5-10 years down the line, you've done a really good job and you've somehow managed to turn that into 100 grand. The tax man sees that as a gain. It's like if you, years ago, my parents bought a house for 50 grand and then they sold it for £500,000. They've gained on their asset. So the tax man comes along and says, because you've had a gain, we want a slice of the pie, basically. We're going to take 10 or 20%. That depends on what your income is. So if you are earning up to £50,000, you only pay 10% on your gain. If you earn over £50,000, you pay 20% on your gain. It's slightly different for properties, but we.
And does it keep going up? So let's say, let's understand the different rates for capital.
Yeah.
Shares are classed as, right?
Yeah. So how it works is exactly that. So firstly, what everyone gets, which will help them pay a little bit less, it's not much, is we all get what's called a capital gains tax allowance every single year. So right now, you get £3,000 of allowance. So say you took your £1,000 of Tesla shares and you turn them into £4,000 of Tesla shares, you've only had a £3,000 gain. So you've stayed within your £3,000 of allowance, no tax to pay the tax man. Happy days. If you've turned your £1,000 into £5,000, well, then you've actually had £4,000 of gain. 3,000 of it gets written off as your allowance. So the additional 1,000 that goes over the £3,000, you'll have to pay 20% tax on, or 10% tax, depending on what your income is. Say you're earning under 50, you pay £100 on that £1,000.
Yeah. And does it, let's say, you know, you have your job, that's your job, and then your side hustle. So from my side hustle, I made, I don't know, £1,000, but my job, I earn 30, 40,000 50,000. So I'm already being taxed for that. I'm being taxed 20% if I'm earning under 45. And then if I'm earning 45, between 40 and 45, I get taxed at the higher rate, right?
Yeah, so it's 50,000. So basically, everyone gets £12,570 of free income. You don't feel like it's free because you don't see it, but they do deduct it. Then anything up to 50,000 is 20%. Anything between 50 and 125 is 40%. Anything over 125,000 of income is 45%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it works. Capital gains tax, the rates are either 10 or 20. So anyone who earns under £50,000 will only pay 10% on their capital gains. Anyone who earns anything over 50, whether it's 50 or 500,000, you're paying 20%.
Or a million even.
Yeah, or a million even, 20%, yeah, sorry. Like I said, it gets a bit different with properties because it depends on whether it's your first or second, but we're talking about stocks, savings and things like that. One other thing to consider, though, is the capital gains tax allowance. It's one of those, if you don't use it, you lose it. So when we talk about those shares, if I go back to that share story where you've got your £1,000 and 5 years down the line, you've turned it into 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say go back and use £3,000 for every year and then not pay any tax on that money. You've got to use your allowances in each tax year. So you get to your 10 5 years down the line, they'll wipe 3 off for that tax year, but then you've still got to pay capital gains tax on the other 7 or 6.
So what would you then recommend so that you don't find yourself in that trap? Do you say take out the 3,000 allowance and put it in an ISA?
Yeah, again, or it doesn't even have to go into an ISA. So if you're going the shares route, that's why I try and get people out of it and say you can do exactly what you're doing here with your shares, but in the safety and paperless world of an ISA. If we're sticking in the old shares way, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot more to declare and go back and forth. What you would do, or what I would advise someone to do, is say exactly that. Use your allowance each year. So say in year 1, we've turned it from 1 to 4. Take out the 3 of gain, leave it in cash just for a month for 30 days. Mm-hmm. So you've used up your allowance, and then you put it back in 30 days later. Back into those shares again, but now it counts as a new year, new investment of £4,000 rather than 1. And now we're starting back at almost 0 is 4,000, and we can grow to 7 before we pay any tax. Then we take the 7 out the next tax year, wait 30 days, put it back in, grow the 7 to 10, and do the same. But what lots of people don't do is they don't do that, and they leave it for 10, 15 years, and they've got 10 years, 15 years of gain there that we can't do anything about. So it's called bed and breakfasting. You take it out and you put it back in. Take it out so you're almost realising the gain. Yep, I've made £3,000 this year. I'm taking it out. Don't need to pay any tax. Put it back in and start back at 0. Go again. Next year, take them out, cash it, put it back in. And that way...
Like a real job, honestly. It just sounds like something... how would you even remember all this, All these rules and...
It's hard.
Yeah. So is that why it's important to get someone like yourself who's thinking for us?
Yeah, do you know what? I'll never sit there and be like, no one can do my job, because there's people out there who can do it. But again, if you're working, if you're a mother, if you've got a house to run, if you've got all of this stuff to run, just a good example I like to use, in the last 11 years, pension rules have changed 9 times. That's nearly every year. How is anyone with other plates to keep spinning meant to keep on top of it? I can keep on top of it because it's my job to. So 8-10 hours a day, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. If I had another job, if I had kids and stuff at home I needed to look after, would I be able to keep on top of it? No, probably not. Not to say that people who don't have someone like me isn't doing a good job, but it's just almost nice for a lot of people to go, you know what, rather than read the 32-page spring budget announcement to see what if any rules affect me.
Yeah.
Let's just hear what Natalie has to say, and she can tell me this is what was said. oh, your pension's fine, nothing changed with that, but child benefit changed, so as of 3 months time you'll get 30 hours free or whatever. I can summarize it all for you.
Oh, so okay. So, but then how, for example, do we get someone like yourself? Do you charge a fee for your services?
So no, I don't charge any fees for any services. Like conversations like this, I've got people who want to jump on and just pick my brain for an hour, no problem at all. The only time you'll sort of pay for my services is, for example, as we're talking about savings and investments, some people might want to go out and do their own savings. Some people might want to try their own stocks and shares ISA and pick the funds, or should I be in Tesla or here or there or whatever. Some people enjoy that. You do that. There's some people who don't know what to pick or what to do. So they say, Natalie, can you do it for me? So again, I'll open you up an ISA, do the exact same thing any other ISA would do. You spend slightly higher annual management charge to have someone like me make those decisions for you. This is where we need to be invested. This is how we claim the tax. This is how's the best way to invest it, or whatever that is. Just a real general rule of thumb. But how I explain it to people is the cheapest ISAs out there are the kind of do-it-yourself platforms. If you want to Hargreaves Lansdown, Vanguard, they're normally quite cheap on the outset. And you just create an online account, you pick all your own funds and shares, you pay in how much you want to pay in, and all of that stuff. They normally are about 0.5% a year in annual management charge. But what you've got to look at is, because they always change the rules every time, is sometimes there's a charge if you want to take your money out. Or sometimes there's a charge if you want to move the funds around. So say you want to move your £1,000 in Tesla to Amazon, there might be a charge to do that move. So again, it's really vital to understand, actually, it might be cheap to open the plan, but how much is it going to cost me to look after it and manage it and do things with it? Next on the sort of scale is your high street banks. So anyone, HSBC, Santander, Nationwide, Lloyds, all of those ones will all do their own ISA as well. Stocks and shares, so you can invest it, you can grow it, you can do all of that. They normally, again, it's very hands off. They don't normally let you pick the individual funds. It's normally they have a few portfolios. So for example, when I went to open one many years ago with HSBC, they said you can pick from these 3 pots: a low risk pot, medium risk pot, or high risk pot. You don't have any oversight actually as to what companies it's invested in or what it's doing or anything like that, or you can't pick and choose, or I want a little bit from here but a little bit from there. They normally charge 1% a year. So again, think about if you've got £1,000 in your ISA, you pay £10 a year for an annual management charge.
And so it makes financial sense to think, first of all, I'm saving on time, I'm saving on research time, and I'm not paying you an upfront, fund. So, and you will probably already have great relationships with, all the banks. You already know what they're going to, before the rest of us, what's going to change, what's likely to be an advantage. So if I gave you £1,000, you would know, for example, where should I put it for a year, and then let's say I open my daughter's account, you would be able to see actually she has this savings with this bank and it's not doing much for her. Why don't we then do this with it? I just don't understand why I, as an amateur, would want to take that on unless it's something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, so there's a kind of plethora of reasons. I think firstly, it kind of goes back to what we spoke about at the start. Lots of people almost take themselves out of this world because they don't think they qualify to be here. They're like, I don't have enough money to have a financial advisor. Like, I'm not in that world yet, or that bubble, or that level yet. But again, as you said, it doesn't matter whether you're starting with £10, 10 grand, 100 grand. Money is money. We all pay taxes. We all want to get the most out of our money. So that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people maybe don't even approach me or ask me or engage with me, because they don't think they're there yet. But again, as you said, but there's lots of other companies who say £300 a meeting, £250 for an hour's call. But I don't do that, because how do I know when you're jumping on the call? I don't know if I could give you £250 worth of value until I've spoken to you. Because there are people who are very on it and they're doing everything they should do. And there's people I speak to and I go, don't change anything. You're putting what you need to put into the pension. You're saving your 10% into your cash. You've got your wedding fund. You've got this. You don't need me. You're doing a good job. I'll touch base with you in a year and see if there's anything changed or you need my help. So I don't think it's right for me to charge up front until I've spoke to someone and I can actually see, is there anything here I can even do to help you? So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is, again, lots of people don't want to pay any kind of charge. They would rather say go for the 0.5% do it yourself platform. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, because if there are people who enjoy it, and I love watching the markets, I love reading Bloomberg and the newses of what's coming up and what I should be aware of. I'm not here to take any hobbies away from anyone. Most people aren't like that though. So again, some people just kind of say, oh, I'd rather try it myself. And then if it goes wrong, I'll come back to you.
I've done that, and I honestly just lose more money if I'm honest. Like every time I thought, okay, because I'm going with gut feeling. I'm thinking, you know what? Richard Branson is rich. I mean, he's just opened a space company. Put a few hundred in Virgin Galactic. So let's say you are somebody who works in Sainsbury's, obviously, or just a normal everyday job.
Yes.
And you earn a normal income. There's a way to grow a great retirement fund, right? Because they obviously, Sainsbury's will put some money into the pension for you.
Yeah.
You have your state pension. How could you get that working for us so that it yields us the maximum amount?
Yeah, firstly, so couple of things I would say to people is, one of the first things you should ask your employer is what is their max matching capability. So 99% of employers right now will be just giving what the legal requirement is. So we have the auto enrollment, which makes it a legal requirement for workers and their companies to pay into pension pots for individuals. That all came around because the state pension just wasn't cutting it. £200 a week isn't enough to live anymore. So that's why they kind of had to bring in these rules to make it a law for people to be putting more into the pension than just hoping and saving that would be enough. So they brought that in, and like I said, most companies will just do their legal requirement, which is about 4 or 5%. The worker will pay him 4, the company will pay him 5. It sort of changes each year, but it's normally around that. I would say first point of call is ask them what's the maximum they're willing to do. Because your worker, Sainsbury's, might turn around and say, well, actually, you're doing 4 right now, Safia, but if you're willing to do 6, we'll actually bump our 5 up to 8. Well, all of a sudden, you're getting an extra £75 a month put into a pot that you didn't have before, or whatever that figure is. But it's free money that you can get from your employer that you wouldn't if you didn't ask.
Do they have to match?
They don't have to. That's why I always say ask them, because again, they might have their own rule that will actually happily go up to 12, even though they're only doing 5. But unless you ask, they won't tell you that. And again, it's not always exact matching. Like that example, they might say, if you pay 8%, we'll pay 12. If you pay 6, we'll pay 8. But it's always good to know, well, actually, what is the most I can get out of them? It might not be the best thing for you to do is to sacrifice 8% of your salary all of a sudden, because you'll have less take home. But you're getting 12% free income from your employer for future Safia, retiree Safia, which again, compounding over time, over years, will make a huge difference. Again, another thing that I see almost everyone falls short for is when you get your pension with your Sainsbury's, Tesco's employer, whoever it is you're working with, you'll get your letter to say you've been enrolled into the pension, this is your account, this is the fund you've been invested in. I can almost guarantee every company does this. Every single employee, whether they've just come out of school at 18 or starting a new job at 55, they'll both be put into the same pension fund. Will just be like a middle of the road, one size fits all index fund, which basically just copies whatever's going on in the markets. That might not be the best thing for you to be in. If you're 20, 30, 40, and you've still got 15, 20 years until you can even use this pot, why are we in the middle of the road fund? Let's go back to what I said earlier, and we'll put you in a high equity fund, high risk fund. Yes, it will go up and down like this, but don't worry, because in 10 years, that's when you'll see the numbers of, oh, I had 50 grand in my pension for Sainsbury's, and in 5 years, it's gone to 150 grand, or whatever that is, because you're going to be in a high risk, high equity based pot. If you're 55, 60, and you've only got a couple years now, maybe let's not put you in a high risk pot. The medium, or maybe even lower than medium, would be better for you. But that again is where I see lots of people fall short, is they're in a fund that they shouldn't be invested in because of their age, and they don't know that they can even change it to something that could probably work better for them.
So what, for example, I've worked for different companies in my working life. How do I find out how much pension my employers put in, or how much, state pension I get?
Yeah.
I'm still young. I'm in my 40s.
I know. So yeah, lots of people aren't even thinking about things like this. But I would say it's good to have. I would say, like, just take stock now at 30, at 40, whatever age you are. Just take stock to be like, does that feel enough for me or not? And once we get into it more, I can sort of start telling you roughly, if you want 20 grand a year to retire from, when you retire, you need at least 25 times that in a pot. Because let's be realistic, you're retiring at 55, you're going to hope to live at least another 25 odd years. So that's the kind of pot size you're going to need there. It's big numbers.
Big numbers. Big numbers. I don't think any of us have been raised to really think about this.
No, because again, it's I don't know if it's more in Britain than other countries, because we haven't really spoken about this in other countries, but people aren't comfortable with talking about finances still. They're not comfortable about, well, this is what I've done with my pet. It's all very hush-hush. 90% of people I speak to, most of the financial knowledge they have has come from their dad or their dad's friend. Oh, my friend down the pub, or my dad's friend down the pub said, oh, I should do this or whatever. Because everything is just like, oh, don't talk about it. Don't ask people what they're earning. Don't ask people where they're saving or what they're aiming for in a pension, because maybe just people don't want to get caught out and not having thought about it. But that's what I say to people. Obviously, you're never too late. There's always something that can be done to slightly enhance the picture, slightly improve things, whatever that may be. But the earlier you can take stock, the more you can do about it. If you are 40, then I'm only 40, so I've still got 15, 20 years till I need to be actually encashing this stuff. At least you've got 15, 20 years to change the picture, which is much easier to do.
And to change it for our children too, right?
Exactly.
To give them a better chance is just literally thinking, okay, what can I do for a decade to put them in a position so that if they need to start a business or if they want to do something, we can start to open up savings for them.
Yeah.
I've learned so much. So let me get this. Let's see if we can do a good wrapping up. You're saying the best thing to do long term is to open up a cash ISA or any form of ISA, so that you're not actually paying out any of the money that you get from it.
Yeah.
And then you said the other thing to consider is if you have a pension, to actually find out if there's a better way to invest that pension.
Yeah.
But how do we do that? So are we allowed to withdraw from the pension?
You can't withdraw in the sense of taking it out as cash. So say, you used to work at Channel 4 or whatever, and you've got Channel 4 pension and there's £7,000 in there. You can't call them up and say, can I get my 7 grand out so I can put it in an ISA or invest in Tesla or whatever that is. It has to legally stay in a pension wrapper. Say that Channel 4 pension or Sainsbury's pension or wherever you've been working is in, I don't know, the Scottish Widows or Royal London or someone like that. What you have to do is firstly find out where it is. So say Scottish Widows, you can call them up and they normally give you access to an online account and you can play around with the funds. What you can also do is say you've worked at Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Asda and Morrison over your life and you've got a pot with each of them. Rather than withdraw it as cash, you can consolidate them into one. So you can take your 7 grand from Tesco's, from Asda and all the other places and combine them into one pot. So now all of a sudden you've got, say, 30 grand in one pot rather than 7 split across many. Only because it can get messy when you're trying to log in details and what funds I'm invested for each one. You can consolidate them all so it's all in one place.
Isn't that riskier if you consolidate?
It is and it's not, because again, it can be, I get what people say, I shouldn't have all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
But really, firstly, what we have in the UK is something called FSCS protection, which means that just say Scottish Widows go under, or Royal London go under, or whatever it is, you are guaranteed by the government for the first 85,000 of your money. So if you've got 75,000 in with Scottish Widows and they go bust tomorrow, the government will give you your £75,000 back. So that's guaranteed.
But what if you have more?
Yes, again, that can be risky in putting them all in one. There are some particular providers. So again, I work very closely with St James's Place. They actually cover 100% of their clients' pensions. So I've got a client with 1.1 million in his pensions with us. If SJP or St James's Place go bust tomorrow, very unlikely again, but if they were to, that client will actually get the whole £1.1 million back, not just 85,000. So again,
because the government has guaranteed SJP.
No, they personally back it. They've got their own bank as well, so they have more than enough sort of cash reserves to personally guarantee 100% of their clients' pensions. Again, not all providers do that, so it would be looking at the right one for you. But I get what people mean. But really, when we talk about diversify, it means don't have your whole £75,000 pot in Tesla, or don't have your whole £75,000 pot in Amazon. You want it diversified up into loads of different funds, not so much the institutions themselves, but your actual cash where the money's invested. That's where we want to make sure not all of our eggs are in one basket.
And then this is just more a pop culture question. Why do you think we don't have, I just don't remember getting people like Bernie Madoff in this country? You know, like a financial investor who has literally just taken all of the money from their clients and gotten away with it, kind of thing. We don't really get those stories, or do we?
No, again, you do hear of them. Again, more since the financial crisis, we've had a big cut down on regulations in banking and in finance. So there's a lot more restrictions in the UK. And yeah, I think it's just us as a culture, as a society in the UK, we don't as much glorify people like that, because, for example, the Warren Buffetts and all of that of the world, Warren Buffett himself has 7 different financial advisors he uses, but everyone clings onto his word as he's actually getting his knowledge from 7 other people. But yeah, I think it just goes back to more, we're very highly regulated in the UK. One of the downsides is everywhere you turn, we're paying tax. There is very little scope for sort of dodging the systems these days. We've got loopholes and there's grey areas where you can definitely flex and pay less tax, claim some back, specific investments that if you put your money in, you get some of your income tax back and so on. But yeah, we're very highly regulated. That almost prevents the kind of Bernie Madoff Ponzi pyramid schemes. You see it more in Bitcoin now than really anywhere else, because there's no regulation in Bitcoin. So that's why you hear the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the FTX and all of that stuff coming out, is because there's no one there making them stick to the rules. Whereas, yeah, in the UK, I'm not saying we're perfect, but we have a very, very long rule book.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I've lost money in Bitcoin, but not much, because I'm always very wary of spending too much on trends like this. Do you know much about ETFs? Is it EFTs or ETFs?
ETFs is a way to invest, actually. That's more you're kind of betting ahead of time what you think is going to happen. You are on about EFTs, which is the Bitcoin crypto-y kind of, where was it the pictures came out and everyone was for these, like was it like the crazy ape or ape something? Yes, about those.
And again, it doesn't work?
It's not, it doesn't work, but it's the trend now. What someone was paying $500,000 for back in 2020 now can't sell for $500. It's all, something's worth what someone's going to spend on it. I'm not saying it was all for nothing, but if you looked at the time of the world we were in, mid-lockdown, I think people were just hoping, like just trying to find something to keep them busy. And this was like the trendy thing to talk about. We're all online and we see celebrities buying it and we just copy what they're doing. But But again, I'm not saying there's no money in it. Lots of people have made a lot of money in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, so it's not to be slept on. But even now that there's tax you've got to pay on Bitcoin, Bitcoin is taxable. Yeah, you've got to pay tax on your growth. If you want to start in cashing, say you've put £2,000 in way back in 2005 and it's now worth 2 million, and you want to take that £2 million out to go pay a house, there's taxes you've got to pay on crypto. In the UK, especially.
That's really good to know. That's good to know. I mean, we need much, don't we?
But then I kind of now see crypto as you're running the risk of you can have the next Sam Bankman-Fried FTX thing where someone just takes all your money and runs because there's no rules. Yes. If I actually benefit from crypto, which is what I'm hoping to do, well, then I've got to pay tax. So I'm taking all the risk of playing in a game where there's no rules. But there is benefit, but it's not a tax-free benefit. So,
if let's say someone comes to you, say I have 1,000 already that I want to invest, and then every month I'm thinking I just want to put away 100, a couple of hundred. Do you think that's a solid plan?
Again, it's a solid starting point for someone who hasn't done anything so far. Again, each person's different. I speak to someone who's earning 20 grand and someone who's earning 200 grand, and they both tell me they can only afford to invest £200 a month. How does that work? So again, it all goes down to individuals and actually their circumstances. But yeah, that's exactly it. I have people come to me, they book in a 45-minute initial consultation. That's just a time for them to pick my brain. I get to know them, understand where are we at, where do we want to be. Then all I start doing is start putting some solutions in front of you. This is maybe what you could do. This is maybe a slightly riskier version, but you'll see more growth in the long run. This is maybe what I do for the kids. And from that, I almost give them a menu of things to think about, things that could help better their scenario. And they say, actually, I like the one for the kids. Well, that one sounds a bit risky, so I maybe don't want to do that, but I'll do the safer option of the fixed interest savings account. And we just find what fits for them. Because again, I give people advice, but it's like one of those, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. A lot of time, if I say, put everything in a high-risk savings account or, a high equity-based portfolio and it's jumping up and down like this every night, some people, that might be a step too far initially. And that's keeping them up at night. My 200 quid has dropped to 150 overnight, Natalie. I'm not here to be keeping people awake. I'm here to help you sleep at night, not giving you more stresses to worry about. So exactly that would happen. So we just talk through what's comfortable for them, what benefit is it to them, and what they think or what I think's best. And we kind of find a middle ground between that and getting them somewhere, but helping them understand why they're doing it and so on.
If someone has 20 grand, let's say, and they were saving for a down payment, put down for a house, would you say to them at this time, yes, get into the property market? If it's not, for obviously personal reasons, they already have a house where they're living, but they're actually thinking, I want to have a little bit of income and I wanted to buy to let. Would you say it's actually in some ways safer and a better return if you put it into a cash ISA than go down the property route, because they have to fix up the property, all the extra expenses that come with that?
I might become very hated in the UK if I start shouting this from the rooftops too much, but it's because we're obsessed with property in the UK. But there's definitely easier ways to make just as much money in a more tax efficient environment. So again, it's not right for everyone. And if you're a property developer and this is your job and you've got limited company structures set up to purchase properties through, fine, great. But if you're just like a usual person, like me and you, we've got our full-time job, we just maybe want a second property to give us a bit of income every month or whatever. Exactly like you said, there's much easier ways to do it, just because of the taxes you've got to pay. You can't offset the mortgage as an expense anymore. You evicting the tenants themselves. If the tenants decide to stop paying rent, you can't just kick them out anymore. You've got to pay for the lawyers to take them to court. That could take at least 6, 12, 18 months to get them out. You don't get all of the lost rent paid back to you. When you sell the house, you've got to pay capital gains tax at a higher rate now because it's your additional property. So rather than 20%, you'll be paying 28% capital gains when you do go to sell it. There's just so many headaches, maintenance, tenancies. I have a client and he is a property developer. he gets emails every day. Oh, the light's gone out. They need to come and change a bulb. You think tenants would be able to change their own bulb themselves, but they don't. It's just constant headaches. And again, I'm not saying that it's not a way to make money. Yeah. But if you're just trying to have a bit of residual income come in, you want to build up a bit of wealth that you can get an extra 500 quid a month to top up your wages, or £1,000 a month, there's much less headachy ways to do it. I wouldn't say a cash ISA. It'd be more the investment side, so the stocks and shares or something like that, a more invested portfolio, which you basically build up over time. So that 20 grand wouldn't be enough anyway for you to buy a property, but 20 grand, and then, you top it up throughout the years with a bit of extra.
I know people who are buying outside of London, obviously not London.
yeah,
$500,000 is not enough in London at the moment. But yeah, I know people who are, buying just rundown properties and doing them up and all of that. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Even if you're just doing the quick flip, do you know what I mean? You're buying a rundown property, doing some work and selling it on. Mm-hmm. If someone's obsessed with property and they want to make their money in property, I'd say that's the better way to do it than the buy-to-let way. Mm-hmm. If you just don't have a consistent headache of what if they don't pay, what if something breaks, what if the boiler breaks. And again, what not many people are aware of, and I can't remember if I said this last time we spoke, but say you're renting out a flat and it's £2,000 a month you're getting in rent, your mortgage or whatever you pay the maintenance amount or whatever it is, that's costing you £1,000 a month. You would sit there and think, great, I'm making £1,000 a month in my pocket every month left over.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the tax man will say, right, you need to pay tax on this income, obviously, because it's income. But rather than pay tax on the £1,000 you're left with in your pocket, they want you to pay tax on what initially came in, irrelevant of what costs you're paying. So you would have to pay tax on £2,000, even though you're only left with £1,000. They don't care that £1,000 of it went to the mortgage. And what can happen
is... You'll be able to expense it off, right?
No, only if you're buying it within a limited company. But again, that costs money. Yeah. You need to pay an accountant, set up a limited company and do all of that. That way you can expense the mortgage. Yeah. If you're doing it as a personal individual and you've just got a second property you're renting out, you pay tax on the whole rent, irrelevant of what you've spent in expenses.
But anyone can set up a limited company even without paying an accountant, right?
Yeah, of course. But then you've obviously then got to do your taxes and do all of that, which again, not many people know how to do the correct business accounts back to HMRC, which then again is more paperwork. You do then have to pay an accountant at some point. Mm-hmm. And then that's when more headache starts getting involved.
Got it. Thank you so much, Natalie. I feel like you've given us a lot to think about. I
was going to summarize it. I was going to say, basically, the best way to think about it is if you're saving for short term. Say you took the thing for the wedding or a deposit for a house. Natalie, I've got 20 grand and I want to buy a house next year. Fixed interest, savings, accounts, cash only. If you're willing to leave it for 3 years or more, then start looking at stocks and shares, investing, bonds, anything like that. And then anything really long-term, pensions. That's the best way to break it down. Short-term cash, medium-term investments, long-term pensions.
But the medium-term investments, it's so risky for an amateur, wouldn't you say?
Again, it can be. It gets risky if you start saying, my £1,000 that I'm coming to you with, Natalie, all in Tesla, or all in Google, or all in Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic new up-and-coming company I heard about. Risky. Mm-hmm. Go for a portfolio or an index of funds or something that is already, again, even if you're trying to do it yourself, you don't even have to come to me. If you try and do it yourself, look for a portfolio of funds, which means someone is sat there at Hargreaves Lansdown, Vanguard, whatever company you're looking at, and an actual expert has piled together these 100 companies into one portfolio that they think is all right, is medium risk.
Well, so like Warren Buffett's company, or I don't know, Bridgewater, that kind of.
Yeah, anything like that, where they'll compose a portfolio for you.
Yeah.
Even
but you just invest in their company.
No, that's different again. So that would be however their company works. If you're investing in their company, you're not then following their investments. You're just following how their company does. So say Warren Buffett's company, and you're buying shares in that. Yes, okay, as long as that keeps making money, then you'll keep making money. but where Warren Buffett's investing his money might not be in his own company. It could be in 100 other companies. So just by
how do I find out what he's investing in so that I can invest like him?
Again, there's lots of sort of online communities. Again, the risk you're running is with investing, it's all done on timing. The first there gets the most gain.
Yeah.
And so by the time Warren Buffett's done it, told his team about it, then they've made a post about it, and someone shared that on an online forum.
So how do we do it with you? If I was going to give you to do that for me, how, because you will have access to tell you sell now or buy now, right?
Yeah, and I actually, in our company, we have fund managers who do that for us. So again, I know all about taxes and wrappers, but I'm not a fund manager. I'm not that person. So they sit there and I compose this client, you, Safia, you're a medium risk investor, so I'm going to put you in one of these pots. Then they sit there and they've got their grounds of the year listing and they sell for me and they buy for my clients before anyone else does. Well, so again, that's why you do, if you pay a bit extra, you do get that sort of ahead of the curve viewpoint of things.
Yeah, but you would recommend your own personal fund managers for someone who wants to take the medium risk?
Again, originally, but don't think that they're all my personal ones. Our company works with fund managers, some in BlackRock, some at KKR, some based in Australia, Japan, North America. They're all over the world. But we've got a team of them based all over the world that, depending on where you sit on my risk spectrum or what you're going to do with the money, I'd say, okay, you'll be best over with this guy here in BlackRock, or you'll be best here. So again, we've got, as you said, the relationships with the fund managers who are doing all of that buying, selling, investing for our clients, so they don't have to worry about it.
And then how do we stay abreast? Are you informed about it weekly, monthly?
Yeah, so you get online access. So it's not the most snazziest of apps or whatever, but there's an app and there's an online desktop version where it's just like online banking. You log in with your email address and password security questions, and you see live updates of where your money's invested, how that's performed. And then also you meet with me at least, I always say to people, minimum legally once a year. For most of my clients, it's normally about once a quarter or once every 6 months. It's just down to, some people say, Natalie, I don't want to know. The more you tell me, the more I'll panic about it. So let's just leave it to once a year, and I'm good catching up. Unless anything goes drastically wrong, reach out to me. But once a year is more than enough. Some other people might be just dipping their toe in it first time they're doing this. Or can we have a quarterly checkup once every 3 months? Or can we touch base once every other month? Whatever that is. There's no, my door's always open kind of thing. I'm here to, like I say, help you sleep easy at night. So as often as you want to see me.
So if I came to see you in 3 months and I've seen actually whatever we've done has gotten a lot of money, you would know to take that out and do something different with it to keep generating a higher yield.
Yeah, exactly that. So what happens is your portfolio might say, again, this is real simple, it's much more complicated than this, but say, I don't know, half your money is invested in North American companies and half your money is invested in Asian companies. Say over time, just North America might slightly outperform for the year or 3 months we're looking at. Well, now all of a sudden, 75% of your money is in North America and only 25% of your money is in Asian economies. Well, maybe we might want to rebalance that back a bit. So I'd say to you, right, we're getting quite heavy in one area than the other. Let's rebalance the portfolio. Or I don't know, there's this new AI fund that's come in that I think is really amazing, or renewable energy fund, whatever that thing that's coming in that I think there's going to be scope or growth in. Then I'll be like, right, Safia, I'm actually going to take, say, 20% of this money out of this one and put it into this AI one, because I think you're going to get some more growth here. Again, I can advise you and I can say, this is what I'd advise you to do. I can't do it without you going, yeah, good, sounds good, Natalie, go ahead with it.
Good to know. If there's anyone out there like me, I hate talking about money. And it's just that now I feel like, okay, I don't want to work for the rest of my life, and I better get a grip of things.
Well, that's it. Again, one of the big sort of trendy topics at the moment is state pensions. That pension you get from the government, there's whispers that it's going to go back from 66, 67 to 70. People are like, I can't keep working to 70. Again, You only have to keep working to 70 if you're reliant on that state pension. The pensions you have for Sainsbury's, anywhere else, they unlock before 70.
No.
But it's only if you can't afford it, you're going to have to keep waiting. If you haven't put enough in your Sainsbury's pot throughout the years, that at 55, you've got, say, 15 grand in there, and that's not enough for 1 year, let alone 10, 15 years to get you to 70, well, then you have to keep working. But that's why I would say to people, looking at this stuff earlier on, you don't have to work to 70 just because that's when the state pension is. You can still, your private pension right now unlocks at 55. In 2028, it's going to move to 57. But you can stop at 57 and you've got a whole pot there to keep you going till 70. Again, that's why lots of people, exactly like you said, I'm only 40. I'm not even thinking about retiring right now. I've got 101 things I need to do before that point. That's fine. But let's just take stock now, give you an idea of if we just carry on as we are and do nothing else, this is what your future will look like. This is what this picture will look like. Yeah. Or let's see if we can do something small and often about it, an extra 50 quid a month, or maxing the employers' contributions you can get, or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. Well, this is what the picture will look like then. Mm-hmm. And then, again, you don't have to do anything, but at least you understand, well, these are my two kind of pictures here. Do I want to do something about it? Do I want to leave it for a couple more years? And then you can just sort of start making that. I would say it's never too early to take stock. I've got 25-year-olds paying into pensions because they want to retire at 50 and not 70.
And so with the private pensions, you don't have to stick by the government rules.
No.
You can withdraw anytime.
Again, there's a legal rule of 55 right now. But you can't. Yeah, even private is 55. Only because, again, they just know if people had access to it before, they'd be taking it out from a deposit for the house to do something else. And then we're back to square one where people have no money in their pensions for retirement. They've spent it while they're still working. So they make it a lock-in to age of 55. Mm-hmm. The only time, morbidly, that you can access it earlier is, unfortunately, if you get diagnosed with a terminal illness and say you're given 12 months to live or something like that, then they'll let you access your pot beforehand, obviously.
And so if it was 55, what are the rules for that? If at 55 you decide, actually, I'm going to withdraw from this private pension that I have saved into for 10 years, what does it get taxed?
Yes, your income tax rates.
Probably said that, and I just didn't retain that. Wow.
It's all right. I've chucked a lot of different rules and tax stuff at you today. So it does part and part. So say you've done a really good job, saved the whole, and I'm only using these numbers because it's easy for the maths, but say you get to 55 and you've got 100 grand in your pots because you've consolidated all your old work ones, you've been topping it up, blah, blah, blah. You've got your 100 grand there to retire on. 25% of your pension pots you get tax-free. So from that 100 grand, you could take out 25,000 on your 55th birthday and not pay any money. And spend it on whatever you want, holidays, paying off the mortgage, whatever it might be. The other 75% of the pot, or 75,000, or however you want to look at it, you do get taxed on, but it's taxed at your income tax rates. So again, most people, you wouldn't start taking an income from your pension until your job stops. So that then becomes your only income. So say then you're taking £1,000 a month out of your pension pot. Well, your income for the year is £12,000, which, as we know, our personal allowance is £12,570. So we're not paying any tax because we're only earning 12 grand a year from our pension. It's what the trap people fall into is they don't fully retire, and at 55 they might go from 5 days a week down to 3 days a week, but they're still earning, say, 15 grand a year, or they're still earning something. And then they also turn on the pension tap of income, and then that starts paying them £1,000 a month. So they've got, say, £1 grand coming in from their regular job, £1 grand coming in from the pension. This is both income now. And what happens is you can very easily start creeping over, and not only is paying 20% tax, but I've got people who they're getting 10 grand a year from the state pension, 15 grand a year from their private pension. They still work and they're earning 15 grand a year as well on top of that. They're earning 50 grand a year and they're paying 40% on tax when they don't. I said, why did you turn that tap on for the pension income? Oh, because I was 55 and that's what I thought I was meant to do. But no, just keep the tap off. Don't take it.
Yeah.
So
Put
again,
it on ISA.
Exactly. And that's why I say to people, build up an ISA pot alongside your pension, and say you want 20 grand a year. Well, I'd say, well, do you know what we're going to do, Safia? We'll take 12,570 out of your pension. That uses up all of our income allowance, and we pay 0% of income on that. And then the other £7,250, we'll take out the ISA this year. So you've got 20 grand in income and you're paying zero to the tax man.
This is really good. This is really good. I think you're going to help so many people to see money differently.
That's it. We all have money. Everyone does.
Yeah. And I think in some ways it also gets, I'm hoping what it does is it helps people think, you know what, I'm wasting time here. Why not start thinking of saving money and investing instead of, Netflix and chill every Saturday and Sunday.
That's literally it. I've got a girl, really good friend of mine, she makes 500 quid a month off TikTok. She does like little TikTok videos or whatever, not little ones. They're clearly very good because TikTok's paying her £500 a month. Well, she doesn't need the money because she has a job and she earns and she's doing whatever she's doing. She puts that £500 a month straight into a pension. That was future Hannah's money. And she's not having to pay any tax on that money because the £500 counts as income, but it doesn't count as income if you put it into a pension straight in. So then she is not paying it to the tax man. That's zero tax to pay every single month. But she's saving her future massively by putting £500 as a 28, 29-year-old into a pension pot for 50, 60-year-old Hannah. She is laughing. So there are, as you said, little things you can do. And, not many people might have £500 spare to put into a pension at 30 years old. But because of 1 hour of TikTok a day, she does what she was doing anyway. Yeah. She is now massively helping her future. And what that means, she can retire at 50 rather than having to work at 70.
What are ways that people can earn an income for savings or investments?
Again, I'm sure everyone hears about the stuff online where you e-commerce, things like that. But again, a lot of the time it takes a lot of money at the start. Not everyone has £5 grand to go buy 1,000 t-shirts from Alibaba or somewhere and then sell them on Amazon or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's a really good way to make money, but you almost need an initial investment to get that off the ground and running. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always sort of take off as quickly as you would. There are some really low-level basic things that I get people doing. Again, just if it's 20 quid a month, 50 quid a week, whatever it is, I would say equate that to a bill and then you don't mind doing it as much. But there's these what's the website called? And it's just it's not like £5 an hour, people an hour, something like that.
Fiverr.
Yeah, maybe Fiverr, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a girl and she wasn't a tutor, she wasn't anything, but she was really good at applying for jobs. Her CV, amazing, interview skills, amazing. But she was like, basically, whatever job I go for, I get. And I'm like, well, why don't you help people with that idea? So she checks people's CVs online for 20 quid, 50 quid. And, put this in, or what other skill do you have? Put this in. Again, she does one of those a week. That's £100 a month spare she has. Yeah. Again, a huge amount of times. People, again, selling clothes. I know that's not an exciting one. Depop and Vinted. I know girls that are making £100 a month on that. Mm-hmm. Even just little things. The surveys, you get a lot of surveys. I have someone who they do mystery shopping. Yeah, mystery shopping as well. There's lots of apps that you can sign up and they get you to go in and product test products and you get 15 quid for each one you do. What other ones are there?
Really good ideas.
Yeah, I seen an amazing one the other day. I actually want to try and do myself a couple. One was vending machines. Mm-hmm. Very easy. You get a vending machine, pop it on a shopping centre, train station, whatever. You can speak to them and they'll tell you. You just pay them rent, but again, it's normally very cheap. You go Costco, bulk buy loads of crisps and chocolates. You can come and collect your cash every month. Mm-hmm. There was another one I seen where people did those party decorations, and it was like one of those igloo, blow up, almost inflatable things that you can go inside. You can buy one for £50, and someone's renting them out £100 a day. The one booking, they've doubled their money.
Oh, wow.
There's my sister alone. She had a child a couple of years ago, so she's getting inundatedly invited to 1-year-olds parties, toddler parties, mum and kid things all the time. She started making chocolate lollipops. She bought chocolate, the molds, and some sticks.
Mm-hmm.
She every time one of the mums groups has a 1-year-old's birthday, Lindsay, can I have 51-year-old or number one chocolate lollies? Yeah, she sells them for 75p a chocolate lolly, and it costs her
Wow.
nothing. There's
Easy.
lots of,
Yes.
yeah, there's what I think the best thing to do is find where you are, like what circle of friends are you in? Are you in the mum and toddler groups? What is it that those toddlers need every week, or whatever it is? Or you bulk buy the milk for the nursery and get all the mums to chip in, whatever it is.
Mm. Be the person doing all the face painting.
Yeah, whatever it may be. My mum was amazing at braiding hair, so whenever we had netball tournaments, she'd just braid everyone's hair. And now, thinking about it, 10-year-old Natalie didn't have the same business acumen I do now. She should have charged us £1 each time. You're making 20 quid in a morning from doing 20 girls French braids or whatever it is.
Yes.
It's just
Yeah, I
about,
always think even like party entertainers, just buy a funny costume, a Disney costume, and go entertain at children's parties.
just anything. There's like lots of, and again, like a big thing people love at the moment is like selfie opportunities or photo opportunities. So, you get one of those drop down mirror backdrops that come with a flower wall.
Yes.
Pay loads of money just to have that at an event, at a baby shower, at something, so they can all get their pictures in front of it. Yeah. I bought for my sister's baby shower the big like see-through baby boxes, and it said BAB1. They were like almost like toy blocks.
Yeah.
Like human size. Every girl who came to the baby shower wanted a photo in front of it.
So you're saying buy that and then rent it out to parties?
Rent it out to parties. And again, you don't have to be the party planner, but all I do now is the girl who I bought the balloons off, I said, anytime you're doing a baby shower, if you want to use those blocks, give me a tenner. Yeah. They cost 20 quid once, and I was going to throw them away. And now every 2 or 3 months, I get 10, 15 quid. Again, it's not much.
You've got such a business mind. It's really, you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset, because even if like you're in your 60s, you're fit, you're strong, you're healthy, you might want to earn a small income, but also not just stay in your house and retire. You might want to do something fun.
Yeah, and also exactly that. And I just say to people, if it's something you enjoy doing or you're good at, it just makes it so much easier. And it's one of those, like, again, where I work with a lot of people in all various stages of their life. I've got people now who are sort of retiring. It's only now they're like, oh, I'm retiring so I can start painting my art that I've always wanted to do. I'm like, why did you wait till you're retired to do it though? You could start doing that on the weekends or the evenings or whatever it is. And obviously the end goal is to do it full time. And yes, you've got to do your boring job in the meantime so you can get to that point. But you're out on time to build traction. You don't want to at 60 just be going out into the art world and just starting to paint. You did it here and there throughout the 30s and 40s. You'd already have maybe a couple of people have bought your art or seen your work, or do you know what I mean? You've already built up that connection and the network of people.
Yeah.
So, again, and I just think when you enjoy it, you don't mind doing it. You don't see it as, oh, I've got to spend my Friday night painting. It's, oh, I get to spend my Friday night painting because you love it. And then you don't see it as a chore. And when you're doing something that's making you some money and you enjoy doing it, what's not to love?
Yeah. I mean, I know people who do that with music. They have a full-time job, and then in the evenings they go to gigs and they get paid a little bit of money to perform on stage because that's what they love doing.
They don't see that as a job. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, one day they'd love for that to be their job full-time.
Yeah.
The only way
I think, one thing I've realized, I think a lot of us are misled that you can make a full income from being like an artist or this and that. Most artists I know actually haven't managed to. I think I was reading Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson is, who we think of. When you think of Pamela Anderson, she's the top of her game. But she tells you she lived broke most of her life. And I think it's only now that we're realizing that just because they had a hit song in the 90s, they managed to live off of that. Everybody,
Yeah,
majority of people, if they're an actor, they've had to have various different jobs. Even if they were famous, it's only
yeah.
few that become Idris Elba or Beyonce. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where they can just fully concentrate on that one sole thing alone. And again, I think it goes back to that money mindset of, if you're Pamela Anderson and you've done your one Baywatch movie or whatever it is, and you're like, this is it, I can spend my money, I don't have to worry about it, you can then very quickly still be broke,
Yeah,
because it's very true. Like, the more money you earn, the more things you find to spend it on. So
yeah.
it's not like, oh, I just need that one big paycheck and that's me. You
Mhm,
kind of got to change that mindset. And one of my favorite was Serena Williams,
mhm.
amazing woman, but she has started her own angel investing company where she invests in predominantly female only companies. 30 of them are now worth over £1 billion. She didn't
Wow.
need to do that because her tennis, I'm sure, maybe could have funded her whole life. She didn't need to, but she had the mindset of, I need, just, I've earned a lot of money, but I want generational wealth. I want my kids to still
Mm,
be benefiting from this. Well, what do I need to do?
mm.
Invest, grow it, diversify, find streams of income that, if she can never play tennis again and all of her tennis money goes, she knows she's got other streams of income coming in.
I hadn't heard that, but I think she's always had that mindset because I remember when she was opening nail salons because she had a passion for nails. I think a lot of artists, I think recently I saw Taraji P. Henson breaking down because she said, I cannot afford to be an actor. And so she started her own hair care line. And you see, even someone like Beyonce, who's like, you know what, we don't sell physical albums anymore. I make all of my money from touring. And apparently, even if you make all of your money from touring and you're a billionaire, you don't feel,
So
you don't feel
that's
secure.
why she has the Ivy Park clothesline. She's just brought out a new hairline because she wants to diversify. She knows she doesn't want to be up on stage for the rest of her life, and that money can go.
Yeah,
So that's
we don't
Rihanna.
realize that. So where are we even in this scheme? Do you know what I mean? We need to be thinking. We do need that entrepreneurial mindset and not to just think like a consumer. I heard a line recently. I can't remember who said this, but they said most of us own Apple products, but we don't own Apple shares. And
Yeah,
how dumb that was.
yeah.
So I
But
think,
as you say, it's because we're all in the consumer mindset. And I think the other mindset we all fall in is, we disqualify ourselves from arenas we're very overqualified or deserve to be in, the investing world. I've got an iPhone, but I can't afford to invest in Apple. You can
mm,
afford £1,000 iPhone,
mm,
or you can afford 50 quid 1 month, or your birthday money or your Christmas money or whatever it was, your 100 quid of the year. Just buy 100 quid of Amazon stock or Apple stock and don't touch it.
mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. I think Amazon definitely. I need to know more. Well, let's start doing this a bit more regularly. You're now our second time guest.
Love it. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have had you back. The last podcast did really well and got a few comments and congratulations. And I think a lot of people left feeling like they actually got something out of it. And I know you're going to be able to help us think differently about money and to really think of money as our friend that's going to be working for us.
And it's like, no matter where you are on your journey, some people, never invested, saved, or anything like that before. Some people are earning loads, but spending loads. It's always a daunting place to be. It's
Yeah.
always a topic that's not really spoken about enough. So, yeah, I'm just hoping we can sort of get rid of some of that anxiety, worries. We are all sort of in the same boat here. There's always maybe more we could be doing, ways we could be saving better, investing better, whatever it is, taxes we can be paying a bit less on. But all we've got to start doing is, if we understand it, getting the right money mindsets, then things start falling into place and it's not so much of a daunting world. No one is ever exactly where they want to be. There's always a bit more we want, or a bit extra income, or whatever that is. But it's just understanding the steps that need to be taken, and it's a journey.
Thank you so much.